Deep beneath Yellowstone National Park, in a reinforced bunker designed to withstand the fury of supervolcanic eruptions, seismologist Jake Lowenstern stares at data streams that defy everything he thought he understood about planetary geology. The monitors display real-time seismic readings from over 3,000 monitoring stations scattered across the North American continent, each one recording the subtle tremors and shifts that pulse through the Earth's crust like a vast, slow heartbeat. But something extraordinary is happening in the data. The seismic patterns aren't random, as geological theory would predict. Instead, they show coordination across impossible distances, tremors in Alaska seeming to respond to shifts beneath the Gulf of Mexico, tiny earthquakes in California appearing to trigger corresponding adjustments in the bedrock beneath New York. The timing is too precise, the correlations too consistent to be mere coincidence. Lowenstern has spent 30 years studying the Earth's geological processes, mapping the movements of tectonic plates and tracking the deep currents of magma that flow beneath the continental shelves. He understands that the planet operates according to physical laws: pressure, heat, chemical reactions, and gravitational forces that shape the landscape over millions of years. But the patterns emerging from his monitoring network suggest something far more complex. A planet that doesn't just respond to physical forces, but appears to coordinate its responses with a sophistication that resembles conscious decision-making. The implications are staggering. If the Earth is somehow coordinating geological processes across vast distances and timescales, then our planet may possess a form of awareness that operates on dimensions we can barely comprehend. The very ground beneath our feet, the rocks, soil, and molten core we consider to be dead matter, may be part of a living system that thinks, responds, and regulates itself with an intelligence that dwarfs human understanding. This possibility would have been dismissed as mystical nonsense just decades ago. But a growing body of scientific evidence suggests that our planet displays characteristics that are difficult to explain without invoking some form of systemic intelligence. The Earth maintains atmospheric conditions within narrow ranges that support life, regulates global temperature through complex feedback mechanisms, and coordinates biological and geological cycles with precision that exceeds the capabilities of human engineering. The first scientist to seriously propose that Earth might function as a single, self-regulating living system was British atmospheric chemist James Lovelock. In the 1970s, while working with NASA to develop instruments for detecting life on Mars, Lovelock made an observation that would revolutionize our understanding of planetary systems. He noticed that Earth's atmosphere was in a state of extreme chemical disequilibrium that could only be maintained by the continuous activity of living organisms. The oxygen in our atmosphere, which makes up 21% of the air we breathe, is highly reactive and should have been consumed by chemical reactions with surface rocks within a few million years. Yet oxygen levels have remained remarkably stable for hundreds of millions of years, despite massive changes in solar radiation, volcanic activity, and the composition of life on Earth. Something was actively maintaining this balance, continuously replacing the oxygen that chemical processes remove from the atmosphere. Lovelock realized that the Earth's biosphere, the thin shell of life that covers our planet's surface, was not simply adapting to environmental conditions, but was actively shaping them. Plants produce oxygen through photosynthesis, but they also regulate the amount they produce based on environmental conditions. When oxygen levels rise too high, increasing the risk of devastating fires, plant metabolism shifts to reduce oxygen production. When levels drop too low, threatening the survival of oxygen-breathing organisms, photosynthesis increases to restore the balance. This regulatory process operates on a global scale, coordinating the activities of billions of organisms across all ecosystems to maintain atmospheric conditions within ranges that support complex life. The precision of this regulation is extraordinary. Oxygen levels have varied by less than a few percentage points over the past 100 million years, despite massive environmental changes including ice ages, asteroid impacts, and the evolution of entirely new forms of life. But atmospheric regulation is just one example of what Lovelock called the Gaia hypothesis, the idea that Earth functions as a single, self-regulating organism that maintains conditions suitable for life. Named after the Greek goddess of Earth, the Gaia hypothesis suggests that our planet possesses a form of systemic intelligence that emerges from the interactions between living organisms, atmospheric processes, ocean currents, and geological systems. The evidence for this planetary intelligence extends far beyond atmospheric chemistry. Earth's surface temperature has remained within a narrow range suitable for liquid water for over 3 billion years, despite the fact that the Sun's energy output has increased by approximately 30% during this period. Without some form of temperature regulation, our planet should have become uninhabitably hot as solar radiation intensified. Instead, Earth has maintained relatively stable temperatures through a complex system of feedback mechanisms involving clouds, ice sheets, ocean currents, and biological processes. The carbon cycle provides another example of planetary self-regulation. Carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere are controlled by a global system that includes photosynthesis by plants, absorption by ocean water, formation of limestone and other carbonate rocks, and release through volcanic activity and organic decay. This system has maintained carbon dioxide concentrations within ranges that prevent both runaway greenhouse warming and ice ages that would freeze the entire planet. Ocean chemistry is similarly regulated through biological and geological processes that maintain the pH and mineral content necessary for marine life. The global circulation of ocean currents distributes heat and nutrients around the planet, moderating climate extremes and supporting diverse ecosystems from the tropics to the polar regions. These currents respond to changes in temperature, salinity, and wind patterns in ways that tend to stabilize rather than destabilize global climate systems. Even more intriguingly, Earth appears to possess something resembling an immune system that responds to threats to the overall planetary system. Mass extinction events, while devastating for individual species, often occur when ecosystems become unbalanced or when external threats like asteroid impacts disrupt global stability. These extinctions clear ecological niches for new forms of life that are better adapted to changed conditions, allowing the planetary system to reorganize and continue functioning. The most recent mass extinction, which eliminated the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, created opportunities for mammals to diversify and eventually develop intelligence capable of understanding planetary systems. Some researchers suggest that the emergence of human consciousness represents Earth's development of a capacity for self-awareness, a nervous system that allows the planet to observe and understand its own processes. But if Earth does possess a form of consciousness, it operates on timescales and spatial dimensions far beyond human experience. Planetary thoughts might unfold over centuries or millennia, with responses to environmental changes taking decades or longer to manifest. The coordination of global systems might require a form of information processing that spans continents and integrates inputs from billions of organisms. This possibility becomes more plausible when we consider recent discoveries about the information processing capabilities of natural systems. Forests communicate through underground fungal networks that span thousands of acres. Bacterial colonies coordinate their behavior through chemical signaling systems that allow them to function as multicellular organisms. Even individual cells demonstrate sophisticated information processing and decision-making capabilities that were previously thought to require brains. If simple organisms can exhibit intelligent behavior, why not planetary systems? The Earth processes vastly more information than any biological brain, integrating data from atmospheric conditions, ocean temperatures, solar radiation, geological processes, and the activities of trillions of living organisms. The complexity of interactions between these systems exceeds anything in human technology, yet they operate with remarkable stability and precision. The magnetic field that protects Earth from deadly solar radiation provides another example of planetary intelligence. The field is generated by the circulation of molten iron in Earth's core, but its strength and orientation are influenced by conditions at the planet's surface, including the distribution of ice sheets, ocean currents, and even the migration patterns of animals that navigate using magnetic cues. The field has reversed its polarity hundreds of times throughout Earth's history, always in ways that maintain protection from cosmic radiation, while allowing life to adapt to changing magnetic conditions. The timing and coordination of these reversals suggest a level of systemic intelligence that monitors both internal planetary conditions and external threats from space. Indigenous cultures around the world have long recognized Earth as a living conscious entity, deserving of respect and careful stewardship. The Aboriginal Australians speak of the Earth as a living ancestor whose Dreamtime stories encode practical knowledge about ecological relationships and environmental changes. Native American traditions describe Mother Earth as a conscious being whose health depends on maintaining balance between all living systems. These traditional perspectives, once dismissed by Western science as primitive superstition, are gaining new respect as scientific evidence accumulates for planetary intelligence. Researchers are discovering that indigenous land management practices often maintain ecosystem stability more effectively than modern technological approaches, suggesting that traditional peoples may have developed intuitive understanding of planetary consciousness through thousands of years of careful observation. Modern environmental crises may represent symptoms of planetary stress caused by human activities that disrupt global regulatory systems. Climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and resource depletion could be triggering immune responses similar to fever, inflammation, and other biological reactions to infection or injury. If Earth does possess consciousness, then the environmental changes we're witnessing may be attempts at planetary self-healing rather than simply mechanical responses to human impacts. The possibility that we are living on a conscious planet transforms our understanding of humanity's role in Earth's systems. Rather than being passive inhabitants of a dead rock hurtling through space, we may be components of a living, thinking entity that has given rise to our species as part of its own development toward greater self-awareness and complexity. But this recognition also brings profound responsibility. If Earth is conscious, then our relationship with the planet becomes a relationship between different forms of awareness, one individual and biological, the other collective and planetary. Our survival may depend not just on understanding Earth's physical systems, but on learning to communicate and cooperate with a form of intelligence that operates on scales we're only beginning to comprehend. This seismic data streaming across Lowenstern's monitors may be more than just recordings of geological processes. They may be glimpses into the neural activity of a planetary mind, a consciousness that encompasses every ecosystem, every weather pattern, every grain of soil and drop of water on Earth. The question is not whether this consciousness exists, but whether we can learn to recognize and respond to it before our own unconscious actions trigger responses that ensure our survival or guarantee our extinction. But to understand how such planetary consciousness might actually function, we must first examine the scientific evidence for Earth as a living, self-regulating system. Evidence that reveals mechanisms of planetary intelligence far more sophisticated than anyone previously imagined. In a laboratory at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, microbiologist Lynn Margulis peers through her microscope at organisms that challenge everything biology has taught about evolution. Swimming in the droplet of pond water beneath her lens are colonies of bacteria that have learned to work together so effectively that they function as single, more complex organisms. These endosymbiotic relationships, literally living together inside, reveal that cooperation, not competition, has been the primary driver of evolutionary complexity throughout Earth's history. Margulis has spent decades documenting how the most fundamental structures of life arose through partnerships between different types of organisms. The mitochondria that power every cell in our bodies were once independent bacteria that learned to live inside other cells, trading energy production for protection and resources. The chloroplasts that allow plants to capture sunlight were originally photosynthetic bacteria that formed similar partnerships with plant ancestors billions of years ago. These discoveries revolutionize our understanding of how complex systems emerge in nature. Rather than evolving through ruthless competition and survival of the fittest, life develops through increasingly sophisticated forms of cooperation and mutual dependence. Individual organisms merge their capabilities to create new forms of life that are more resilient, more capable, and more intelligent than any of their components could be alone. This principle of cooperative emergence may explain how Earth itself has developed the characteristics of a living conscious system. Just as bacteria learn to coordinate their activities to create multicellular organisms, the various components of Earth's biosphere, plants, animals, microorganisms, atmospheric processes, ocean currents, and geological systems may have learned to coordinate their activities to create a planetary organism with emergent properties that transcend any individual component. The evidence for this planetary coordination is found in Earth's extraordinary ability to maintain stable conditions despite massive environmental changes. For over 3.5 billion years, our planet has kept its surface temperature within the narrow range necessary for liquid water, even as the sun's energy output has increased by 30%. This temperature regulation requires the coordinated activity of systems spanning the entire globe. When Earth's surface becomes too warm, increased evaporation creates more clouds that reflect sunlight back to space. Higher temperatures also accelerate the weathering of rocks, which removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and reduces the greenhouse effect. Ocean circulation patterns shift to distribute heat more effectively from the tropics toward the poles. Ice sheets expand to reflect more solar radiation. All of these responses work together to cool the planet. When Earth becomes too cold, the opposite processes occur. Reduced cloud cover allows more sunlight to reach the surface. Decreased weathering leaves more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to trap heat. Ocean currents adjust to retain warmth in tropical regions. Ice sheets retreat to absorb more solar energy. The precision with which these systems coordinate their responses suggests a level of planetary intelligence that operates through feedback mechanisms spanning the entire Earth system. The regulation of atmospheric oxygen provides an even more striking example of planetary intelligence. Oxygen is one of the most reactive elements in the periodic table, readily combining with other substances in processes that should have eliminated it from Earth's atmosphere within a few million years after it first appeared. Yet oxygen levels have remained remarkably stable at approximately 21% for hundreds of millions of years. This stability is maintained through the coordinated activities of all oxygen-producing and oxygen-consuming organisms on Earth. Photosynthetic plants and bacteria produce oxygen as a waste product of converting sunlight into chemical energy. The amount of oxygen they produce varies based on environmental conditions, more when atmospheric levels are low, less when levels are high. Meanwhile, oxygen consumption by respiring organisms, forest fires, and chemical weathering of rocks removes oxygen from the atmosphere at rates that precisely balance production over geological timescales. The coordination required to maintain this balance involves every ecosystem on Earth, from rainforests and grasslands to ocean plankton and soil microorganisms. The 21% oxygen level appears to be optimal for complex life. If oxygen concentrations dropped below 16%, fires would not burn and many large animals would suffocate. If levels rose above 25%, even wet vegetation would burn explosively and forest fires would be impossible to control. The Earth maintains oxygen concentrations within this narrow window through processes that seem to anticipate and prevent dangerous fluctuations. Carbon dioxide regulation demonstrates similar planetary intelligence. Carbon dioxide levels affect global temperature through the greenhouse effect, but they are controlled by processes that span the living and non-living components of Earth's systems. Plants absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, converting it into organic matter that can be stored in wood, soil, or sediments for centuries or millennia. Ocean water absorbs enormous quantities of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, with marine organisms using the dissolved carbon to build shells and skeletons that eventually form limestone and other carbonate rocks. Meanwhile, volcanic activity and the decay of organic matter release carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere in amounts that balance absorption over long time periods. This carbon cycle operates as a planetary thermostat. When Earth becomes too warm, increased plant growth and chemical weathering remove more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, reducing the greenhouse effect and cooling the planet. When Earth becomes too cold, reduced biological activity and weathering leave more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, increasing warming and preventing runaway cooling. The ocean circulation system functions as Earth's cardiovascular system, distributing heat and nutrients around the planet with remarkable precision. The Gulf Stream carries warm water from the tropical Atlantic to northwestern Europe, moderating the climate and making regions like Britain habitable, despite their northern latitude. Similar currents in the Pacific and other ocean basins transport heat from the equator toward the poles, preventing the extreme temperature differences that would make most of the planet uninhabitable. These ocean currents are driven by differences in water temperature and salinity, but their patterns are influenced by wind systems, the rotation of the Earth, the shape of ocean basins, and even the gravitational effects of the Moon. Changes in any of these factors cause the currents to adjust in ways that maintain global climate stability rather than triggering runaway changes. The deep ocean circulation, known as the global conveyor belt, operates on timescales of hundreds to thousands of years, carrying oxygen and nutrients to the deepest parts of the ocean and returning carbon dioxide and other dissolved substances to the surface. This circulation ensures that even the most remote parts of the ocean remain habitable for marine life, while also regulating the exchange of gases between the ocean and atmosphere. Earth's magnetic field provides another example of planetary intelligence. Generated by the circulation of molten iron in the planet's core, the magnetic field protects the surface from the deadly solar radiation and cosmic rays that would strip away the atmosphere and make complex life impossible. The field's strength and orientation respond to changes in both the Earth's interior and external conditions in space. The magnetic field has reversed its polarity hundreds of times throughout Earth's history, with the magnetic north and south poles switching places over periods of thousands of years. These reversals occur when the field weakens to the point where it can no longer maintain its current orientation, allowing it to reorganize in the opposite direction. The timing of magnetic field reversals appears to be influenced by conditions at Earth's surface, including the distribution of ice sheets, ocean currents, and even the movement of tectonic plates. During ice ages, when large ice sheets alter the distribution of mass on Earth's surface, magnetic reversals become more frequent. When the climate is stable, reversals occur less often. This suggests that Earth's magnetic field is not simply a product of internal geophysical processes, but responds to the overall state of the planetary system. The field appears to coordinate with other Earth systems to maintain conditions suitable for life, strengthening when external threats increase, and reorganizing when planetary conditions change. The geological processes that shape Earth's surface also demonstrate coordination that suggests planetary intelligence. The movement of tectonic plates recycles ocean crust and regulates the release of gases from Earth's interior. Volcanic activity releases carbon dioxide and other gases that have been stored in rocks, while also creating new land surfaces for colonization by life. The timing and intensity of volcanic eruptions appear to be coordinated with climate conditions and biological processes. During ice ages, reduced volcanic activity helps maintain cold conditions, while increased volcanism during warmer periods contributes to climate stability. Major volcanic eruptions often occur during periods of environmental stress, releasing gases and materials that help ecosystems adapt to changing conditions. Mountain building processes create diverse landscapes that support different types of ecosystems, while also influencing weather patterns and ocean circulation. The chemical weathering of mountains removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, helping to regulate global temperature. The erosion of mountains provides nutrients to soils and ocean systems, supporting biological productivity. All of these geological processes operate on timescales much longer than biological processes, yet they appear to coordinate with biological systems to maintain planetary stability. The emergence of land plants 200 million years ago dramatically increased the weathering of rocks, removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during a period when the sun's energy output was increasing. This biological innovation helped prevent runaway greenhouse warming that could have made Earth uninhabitable. The coordination between biological, atmospheric, oceanic, and geological systems suggests that Earth functions as an integrated living system with emergent properties that transcend its individual components. Like the bacteria that Margulis studies, the various subsystems of Earth have learned to work together so effectively that they function as a single, more complex organism. This planetary organism appears to possess a form of intelligence that emerges from the interactions between its components. It can sense changes in external conditions, process information about internal states, and coordinate responses that maintain stability and promote the development of greater complexity and awareness. But the most remarkable aspect of this planetary intelligence may be its creativity. Over billions of years, Earth has continuously developed new forms of life, new types of ecosystems, and new ways of processing energy and information. The emergence of photosynthesis, sexual reproduction, multicellular organisms, and ultimately consciousness itself represents a trajectory of increasing complexity and awareness that suggests Earth is not simply maintaining itself, but actively exploring new possibilities for life and intelligence. The question is whether this planetary consciousness is becoming aware of itself through the development of human intelligence, or whether our species represents a potentially dangerous disruption to planetary stability that must be managed or eliminated. The answer may depend on whether we can learn to recognize our role as components of a larger living system and align our activities with planetary intelligence rather than working against it. But to understand how we might establish such alignment, we must first explore the hidden networks that connect all life on Earth, the underground communication systems that may represent the planet's actual nervous system. In the coastal rainforests of British Columbia, forest ecologist Suzanne Simard kneels beside a towering Douglas fir tree, carefully extracting soil samples from around its massive roots. What she discovers in these samples will revolutionize our understanding of how forests think, communicate and coordinate their activities across vast distances. Beneath the visible forest of trees, branches and leaves lies an invisible network more complex and sophisticated than the internet, a fungal web that connects every plant in the forest and allows them to share information, resources and coordinated responses to environmental changes. Simard has spent over 30 years mapping these underground networks, using radioactive carbon tracers to follow the flow of nutrients between trees separated by hundreds of meters. Her research reveals that individual trees are not isolated competitors struggling for survival, but interconnected components of forest-scale superorganisms that function with a collective intelligence exceeding any individual plant. The network consists of microscopic fungal threads called mycorrhizae that form partnerships with plant roots. These fungi, invisible to the naked eye, extend the root systems of trees by factors of hundreds or thousands, creating underground webs that can span entire continents. A single handful of forest soil contains millions of meters of fungal threads, connecting not just individual trees, but entire ecosystems in networks of communication and resource sharing. Through these fungal connections, trees can send chemical messages warning of insect attacks, drought conditions, or disease outbreaks. When a tree is attacked by bark beetles, it releases chemical signals through the mycorrhizal network that cause neighbouring trees to increase their production of defensive compounds before the insects can reach them. The warning can travel through the network faster than the insects themselves can spread, allowing entire forests to coordinate their immune responses. The network also facilitates resource sharing on a scale that seems almost impossible. Large established trees with access to sunlight send excess carbon to smaller trees growing in shade, ensuring the survival of the next generation even when light conditions would normally be fatal. Trees in different seasons or with different resource requirements trade nutrients based on their changing needs. Deciduous trees sending carbon to evergreens during winter when their leaves have fallen, evergreens returning the favour during spring when they have the excess photosynthetic capacity. But the most remarkable aspect of these forest networks is their apparent capacity for learning and memory. Trees can distinguish between their own offspring and unrelated seedlings, preferentially sending resources to their genetic descendants. They can also recognise individual neighbouring trees and adjust their resource sharing based on the reliability and reciprocity of their partners. Some trees appear to maintain accounts of past exchanges, reducing their generosity toward partners who have failed to reciprocate in previous interactions. The network demonstrates what researchers call swarm intelligence, the emergence of complex adaptive behaviour from the simple interactions of many individual components. Like ant colonies or bird flocks, forest networks exhibit decision-making capabilities that no individual tree possesses. They can coordinate responses to threats, optimise resource distribution, and even influence the evolution of new plant species through selective resource allocation. Peter Wohlleben, a German forester whose research complements Simard's work, has documented even more remarkable examples of forest intelligence. Trees, he discovered, can slow their growth to synchronise with neighbouring trees, ensuring that the forest canopy develops evenly and maximises the community's collective access to sunlight. They can also alter the timing of their reproduction to coordinate with favourable environmental conditions across entire regions. Parent trees demonstrate what can only be described as parental care, shading their offspring to protect them from excessive sunlight, sharing nutrients during periods of stress, and and even supporting the stumps of dead relatives for decades after they have been cut down. The forest network maintains these dead stumps as living entities, continuing to supply them with nutrients and defensive compounds as if they were still alive. Most remarkably, trees appear to be capable of what Vorleben calls forest planning. Old-growth forests develop structural complexity and species diversity that suggest long-term strategic thinking spanning centuries. Trees position themselves and their offspring to take advantage of future-like conditions, plan for the eventual deaths of neighbours, and coordinate their activities to maintain forest stability across multiple tree generations. These discoveries reveal that the traditional view of forests as collections of competing individual trees is fundamentally incorrect. Forests are better understood as single, integrated organisms with distributed intelligence that emerges from the interactions between millions of connected components. The visible trees are merely the most obvious parts of vast underground superorganisms that think, plan, and coordinate their activities through fungal neural networks. But forest networks are just one example of the hidden communication systems that connect life on Earth. The global soil microbiome, the community of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and other microorganisms that live in soil, functions as Earth's digestive system, breaking down organic matter and recycling nutrients essential for all terrestrial life. This soil network spans the entire land surface of Earth, processing organic matter from every ecosystem and maintaining the chemical cycles that support plant growth. Soil microorganisms communicate through chemical signals that coordinate their activities across vast distances, responding to changes in plant communities, climate conditions, and nutrient availability with remarkable precision. The soil network demonstrates memory effects that persist for decades. Soils that have supported particular plant communities retain microbial populations that favour the growth of similar plants years after the original vegetation has been removed. This soil legacy effect suggests that the Earth itself remembers the history of plant communities and actively influences future ecological development based on past experience. Recent research has revealed that soil microorganisms can even influence the behaviour and health of animals through complex chemical signalling. The bacteria in soil produce compounds that affect the immune systems, nervous systems, and even behaviour of animals that live in contact with soil. Some soil bacteria produce neurotransmitters identical to those used by animal brains, suggesting that the soil microbiome may be directly interfacing with animal nervous systems. The root systems of plants and their associated fungal networks extend these soil communication systems into three-dimensional webs that span entire landscapes. A single plant's root fungal network can connect it to hundreds of other plants across areas of several hectares. Multiple overlapping networks create redundant communication pathways that ensure information can travel between any 2 points in the ecosystem through multiple routes. These networks exhibit self-healing properties similar to biological neural networks. When connections are severed by disturbance, new pathways form to maintain communication between isolated components. The networks can also adapt their structure based on information flow, strengthening connections that carry important signals and allowing unused pathways to diminish. The electrical properties of these root fungal networks closely resemble those of animal nervous systems. Fungal threads conduct electrical signals at speeds comparable to nerve impulses in simple animals, and they demonstrate the same patterns of electrical activity that characterize neural computation in brains. Some researchers suggest that mycorrhizal networks may function as distributed computing systems that process information about environmental conditions and coordinate ecosystem responses. The global scope of these networks becomes apparent when we consider that mycorrhizal fungi have been found in every terrestrial ecosystem on Earth, from tropical rainforests to Arctic tundra. The fungal species that form these networks are among the most widely distributed organisms on the planet, creating communication pathways that potentially span continents. Spores of mycorrhizal fungi can travel thousands of kilometers through atmospheric currents, establishing new network connections between previously isolated ecosystems. This global dispersal system means that information about environmental conditions, successful adaptations, and beneficial partnerships can spread between ecosystems separated by vast distances. The ocean contains similar communication networks based on different organisms, but operating according to comparable principles. Marine bacteria form biofilms that can span entire ocean basins, coordinating their activities through chemical signaling systems that function like bacterial nervous systems. Phytoplankton, microscopic marine plants that produce most of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere, coordinate their growth and reproduction through chemical signals that travel through ocean currents. These marine networks connect with terrestrial systems through the water cycle, atmospheric gas exchanges, and the migration of organisms between marine and terrestrial environments. Nutrients from soil networks reach the ocean through rivers and groundwater, while ocean-derived materials reach terrestrial ecosystems through precipitation, sea spray, and the movements of animals that travel between marine and terrestrial habitats. The integration of terrestrial and marine communication networks creates a global information system that spans Earth's entire biosphere. Changes in one ecosystem can trigger responses in distant ecosystems through these interconnected networks, allowing the planet to coordinate responses to environmental changes on a global scale. Indigenous peoples around the world have long recognized the existence of these hidden networks, describing the Earth as a living entity with awareness that extends through all natural systems. The Aboriginal Australian concept of country encompasses not just the land surface, but the underground networks that connect all living beings. Native American traditions speak of the web of life that links all organisms through invisible threads of communication and mutual support. These traditional knowledge systems describe the Earth as possessing a form of consciousness that emerges from the connections between all living things. From this perspective, individual organisms are like neurons in a planetary brain, contributing to collective intelligence through their participation in global communication networks. Modern research is beginning to validate these traditional insights. The mycorrhizal networks that Simard studies, the soil microbiome communities that span continents, and the marine bacterial systems that coordinate ocean productivity all demonstrate characteristics of distributed intelligence that may contribute to planetary-scale consciousness. The information processing capacity of these biological networks is staggering. A single cubic meter of forest soil contains more bacterial cells than there are stars in the observable universe, each cell capable of processing information and responding to environmental signals. The computational power represented by Earth's biological networks exceeds anything achieved by human technology by many orders of magnitude. These networks also demonstrate learning, memory, and adaptive responses that suggest forms of intelligence distributed across the entire biosphere. They can anticipate environmental changes based on past experience, coordinate responses to threats that span multiple ecosystems, and influence the evolution of new species through selective resource allocation and environmental modification. The possibility that these networks contribute to planetary consciousness becomes more plausible when we consider their global scope, information processing capabilities, and sophisticated behavioral responses. If consciousness can emerge from neural networks in animal brains, it may also emerge from the vastly more complex biological networks that span Earth's entire biosphere. But these biological networks are not the only communication systems that might contribute to planetary consciousness. Earth's electromagnetic systems create additional information pathways that connect all regions of the planet and may play crucial roles in coordinating global-scale phenomena. The investigation of these electromagnetic networks reveals even more evidence for planetary intelligence operating through invisible channels of communication that span the entire Earth system. The question is whether human technological systems are learning to interface with these natural networks, or whether we are disrupting communication pathways that have taken billions of years to develop. Our relationship with Earth's hidden networks may determine whether we become integrated components of planetary consciousness or invasive disruptions that must be isolated or eliminated for the health of the larger system. High in the Austrian Alps, at the Schumann Resonance Observatory, physicist Gabriela Vaedas monitors electromagnetic signals that pulse through Earth's atmosphere with the regularity of a heartbeat. The instruments surrounding her detect extremely low-frequency radio waves that bounce between Earth's surface and the ionosphere, creating standing wave patterns that circle the globe continuously. These electromagnetic oscillations, known as Schumann resonances, maintain frequencies that have remained remarkably stable for millions of years, pulsing at 7.83 Hz, like the steady rhythm of planetary consciousness. The primary Schumann resonance frequency is no accident. This 7.83 Hz signal falls within the alpha wave range of human brain activity. the same frequency produced by relaxed, meditative states of consciousness. Even more remarkably, this frequency appears to be optimal for maintaining the health and synchronization of biological systems. Laboratory studies have shown that when humans are isolated from Schumann resonances in electromagnetically shielded environments, they develop sleep disorders, immune system dysfunction, and various health problems that resolve when they are re-exposed to 7.83 Hz electromagnetic fields. The resonances are generated by the approximately 50 lightning strikes that occur every second around the globe, creating electromagnetic pulses that propagate around Earth at the speed of light. But the frequencies that emerge from this constant electrical activity are not random. Instead, they lock into precise harmonics that suggest the entire Earth atmosphere system functions as a massive electromagnetic cavity designed to maintain optimal frequencies for life. Vedas and her colleagues have discovered that Schumann resonance patterns change in response to global environmental conditions, solar activity, and even human consciousness states. During geomagnetic storms caused by solar flares, the resonances shift in ways that affect biological systems worldwide. Animals that navigate using electromagnetic fields become disoriented. Human hormone cycles and sleep patterns are disrupted. Emergency room admissions for heart attacks and psychological crises increase significantly. But the most intriguing discovery is that Schumann resonances appear to respond to collective human consciousness states. During events that focus global attention, major disasters, sporting events, or meditation gatherings involving large numbers of people, the resonance patterns show measurable changes that correlate with the emotional intensity and coherence of human collective consciousness. The Global Consciousness Project, coordinated by Princeton University, has documented these correlations using a worldwide network of random number generators that somehow become less random during periods of heightened global consciousness coherence. The same periods that affect random number generators also produce distinctive patterns in Schumann resonances, suggesting that human collective consciousness may interface directly with Earth's electromagnetic systems. This possibility becomes more plausible when we consider that the electromagnetic fields generated by Earth extend far beyond the atmosphere into space, creating a magnetosphere that interacts with solar wind and cosmic radiation from throughout the galaxy. The magnetosphere functions as Earth's sensory system, detecting changes in the solar system and cosmic environment that affect conditions on the planet's surface. The magnetic field lines that shape this magnetosphere are not static barriers but dynamic information channels that process and transmit signals about space weather conditions. When charged particles from solar flares interact with Earth's magnetic field, they create electromagnetic disturbances that propagate through the field lines to affect technological systems, biological processes, and atmospheric conditions around the globe. The auroras that appear at Earth's magnetic poles during geomagnetic storms represent visible manifestations of this information processing. The colours, patterns, and movements of auroral displays encode information about the intensity, direction, and composition of solar wind particles interacting with Earth's magnetic field. Indigenous peoples of the Arctic have long recognized auroras as communications from spiritual entities, and modern research suggests these traditional interpretations may be more accurate than previously understood. The magnetic field lines that create auroral displays extend through Earth's interior to the planet's core, where they originate from the circulation of molten iron driven by the planet's rotation and internal heat. This geomagnetic dynamo operates as a massive electrical generator that maintains Earth's magnetic field through processes that respond to both internal planetary conditions and external cosmic influences. The field strength and orientation fluctuate in patterns that correlate with seismic activity, volcanic eruptions, and even weather systems. Some researchers have documented magnetic field anomalies that precede earthquakes by days or weeks, suggesting that the field may serve as an early warning system for geological instability. The field also influences atmospheric circulation patterns that affect global climate systems, but perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Earth's electromagnetic systems is their role in biological navigation and communication. Millions of species use magnetic field information for migration, from Arctic terns that navigate between polar regions to sea turtles that cross entire ocean basins with extraordinary precision. These biological navigation systems are so sophisticated that they can detect magnetic field variations as small as 50 nanotesla, changes too subtle for most scientific instruments to measure. Birds, marine animals, and even bacteria contain magnetosomes, microscopic crystals of magnetite that function as biological compasses. These magnetosomes are connected to nervous systems in ways that allow animals to perceive magnetic field information as a form of sensory input comparable to vision or hearing. Some species can create three-dimensional mental maps of magnetic field topography that guide their movements across thousands of kilometers of apparently featureless terrain or ocean. The precision of these biological navigation systems suggests that Earth's magnetic field contains far more information than scientists previously recognized. Rather than being a simple dipolar field with north and south poles, Earth's magnetism consists of complex patterns that encode information about geological structures, magnetic anomalies, and even temporal changes that allow animals to determine their location with GPS-level accuracy. Recent research has revealed that the magnetic field patterns used by migrating animals are generated by interactions between Earth's global magnetic field and local geological features. Underground mineral deposits, fault systems, and variations in rock composition create magnetic signatures that animals can read like a three-dimensional map encoded in invisible electromagnetic patterns. These magnetic maps contain historical information spanning thousands of years. Animals can detect magnetic field changes caused by past volcanic eruptions, shifts in ocean current patterns, and even variations in solar activity recorded in geological formations. The magnetic field essentially functions as a planetary memory system that preserves information about Earth's environmental history in forms accessible to biological navigation systems. Lightning networks create additional layers of electromagnetic information that span the globe. The electromagnetic pulses generated by lightning strikes propagate through Earth's atmosphere as extremely low-frequency radio waves that can travel completely around the planet within a fraction of a second. These signals carry information about atmospheric conditions, storm systems, and electrical activity at their points of origin. The global lightning network generates approximately 1.4 billion lightning strikes per year, creating electromagnetic pulses that maintain continuous communication between all regions of Earth's atmosphere. This electrical activity is not randomly distributed, but follows patterns that correlate with seasonal changes, solar activity, and atmospheric circulation systems that suggest coordination between electromagnetic and meteorological processes. The electrical conductivity of Earth's surface and atmosphere creates pathways for electromagnetic signals that connect all regions of the planet in communication networks comparable to biological nervous systems. The ionosphere functions as a global waveguide that allows electromagnetic signals to propagate between any 2 points on Earth's surface with minimal energy loss. Underground electrical currents complete these communication circuits, flowing through groundwater, mineral veins, and conductive rock formations that span continents. These telluric currents fluctuate in response to geomagnetic field changes, tidal forces, and seismic activity, creating electrical signal patterns that may coordinate geological processes across vast distances. The integration of atmospheric and underground electrical systems creates a planetary, electromagnetic nervous system that processes information about conditions throughout Earth's interior and exterior. This system can detect changes in solar activity, cosmic radiation, seismic stress, volcanic activity, atmospheric conditions, and biological activity, then coordinate responses that maintain planetary stability. Mining operations and electromagnetic interference from human technology appear to disrupt these natural electrical networks in ways that affect both biological navigation systems and geological processes. Animals that depend on magnetic navigation are increasingly disoriented by electromagnetic pollution from power lines, radio transmissions, and electronic devices. Seismic activity patterns have changed in regions with extensive mining and drilling operations that alter underground electrical conductivity. But some human activities may be learning to interface constructively with Earth's electromagnetic systems. Traditional practices like acupuncture and meditation appear to work by aligning human bioelectrical fields with Earth's electromagnetic patterns. Sacred sites around the world are often located at positions where Earth's magnetic field lines converge, or where underground electrical currents create distinctive electromagnetic signatures, indigenous cultures developed sophisticated understanding of these electromagnetic phenomena through thousands of years of careful observation. Aboriginal Australian songlines mark paths across the landscape that correspond to underground electrical currents and magnetic field variations. Native American medicine wheels align with magnetic field patterns that concentrate electromagnetic energy at specific locations during seasonal transitions. These traditional knowledge systems suggest that human consciousness may be naturally designed to interface with Earth's electromagnetic fields. The 7.83 Hz frequency of Schumann resonances corresponds not only to relaxed human brain states, but also to the frequencies used by traditional practices for achieving expanded states of consciousness and connection with natural systems. Modern research into consciousness and electromagnetic fields is revealing that brain activity generates measurable electromagnetic fields that extend beyond the skull and can be detected by sensitive instruments. These bioelectric fields interact with environmental electromagnetic patterns in ways that may allow human consciousness to directly interface with Earth's electromagnetic systems. The Global Consciousness Project's findings suggest that collective human consciousness can influence quantum mechanical processes and electromagnetic field patterns on a planetary scale. During events that focus global attention, measurements of quantum randomness and electromagnetic field coherence show statistically significant deviations from normal patterns that correspond to the emotional intensity and synchronization of human collective consciousness. These correlations suggest that human consciousness may be evolving to function as Earth's self-awareness mechanism, a biological interface that allows the planet to observe and understand its own processes through the development of conscious intelligence. The electromagnetic compatibility between human brainwave patterns and Schumann resonances may represent an evolutionary adaptation that connects human consciousness directly to planetary electromagnetic systems. But this interface appears to be threatened by electromagnetic pollution from modern technology. The electromagnetic spectrum is increasingly crowded with artificial signals from power systems, wireless communications, and electronic devices that create interference patterns that disrupt both biological navigation systems and natural electromagnetic communication networks. The question is whether human technology is learning to integrate harmoniously with Earth's electromagnetic systems, or whether we are creating electromagnetic chaos that interferes with planetary consciousness. The answer may determine whether human civilization becomes a constructive component of Earth's electromagnetic nervous system, or a source of noise that must be filtered out or eliminated for the planet's electromagnetic health. But electromagnetic fields are not the only mechanism through which Earth might maintain planetary consciousness. The geological processes that shape Earth's surface operate according to patterns that suggest coordination across vast spatial and temporal scales, revealing additional evidence for planetary intelligence operating through the solid structure of the planet itself. In the volcanic highlands of Ethiopia, paleontologist Tim White crouches beside a layer of ash that marks one of the most dramatic moments in Earth's history. The sedimentary record beneath his feet preserves evidence of the Toba super eruption that occurred 74,000 years ago, a cataclysmic event that ejected over 2,800 cubic kilometers of magma and ash into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and triggering a volcanic winter that lasted for years. But White's analysis of the fossil record reveals something extraordinary about the timing of this eruption. The Toba event occurred during a period when early human populations were expanding rapidly and beginning to develop the sophisticated tool technologies that would eventually lead to agriculture and civilization. The volcanic winter that followed the eruption reduced the global human population to perhaps as few as 10,000 individuals, creating a genetic bottleneck that shaped the future evolution of our species. The timing seems too precise to be coincidental. Other massive volcanic eruptions throughout Earth's history show similar correlations with periods of rapid evolutionary change or environmental stress. The Deccan Traps eruptions that occurred around the same time as the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. The Siberian Traps that coincided with the Permian-Triassic extinction event 251 million years ago. The massive flood basalt eruptions that repeatedly reset Earth's climate and ecosystems throughout geological history. These volcanic events appear to function as part of Earth's immune system, coordinated responses that eliminate threats to planetary stability and create opportunities for new forms of life to evolve. Like a fever that destroys pathogens while allowing healthy cells to survive, volcanic winters remove species that have become too dominant or environmentally destructive, while preserving organisms that are better adapted to changing conditions. The pattern becomes even more apparent when we examine the 5 major mass extinction events that have shaped Earth's evolutionary history. Each represents a dramatic reset of planetary ecosystems that eliminated dominant species while creating ecological niches for entirely new forms of life to evolve. The extinctions that ended the age of dinosaurs allowed mammals to diversify into the countless species that populate modern ecosystems. But these mass extinctions are not random catastrophes. They occur with remarkable regularity, approximately every 26 million years, suggesting that they may be triggered by cosmic cycles that Earth anticipates and prepares for through coordinated planetary responses. The asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate changes, and oceanic upheavals that cause mass extinctions often occur in clusters that suggest systematic rather than accidental causation. David Rupp and Jack Sepkoski, paleontologists at the University of Chicago, discovered this 26 million year extinction cycle through statistical analysis of the fossil record spanning the past 250 million years. The regularity of the pattern suggests that Earth may be responding to predictable cosmic influences, perhaps the solar system's oscillation through the galactic plane, or gravitational perturbations from nearby stars that affect asteroid orbits and volcanic activity. More intriguingly, the extinctions appear to be precisely calibrated to maintain optimal conditions for the continued evolution of complexity and intelligence. Each mass extinction eliminates enough species to prevent ecological stagnation, while preserving enough biodiversity to support rapid evolutionary innovation. The survivors typically include organisms with characteristics that favour the development of greater intelligence, social cooperation, and environmental adaptability. The emergence of human intelligence may represent the current phase of this evolutionary program. Our species appeared during the Quaternary extinction event that began approximately 2.6 million years ago and has eliminated most of Earth's megafauna. The loss of large predators and competitors created ecological opportunities that favoured the evolution of human cognitive abilities and technological capabilities. But the same processes that created opportunities for human evolution may now be responding to the environmental disruption our species has caused. Climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and resource depletion may be triggering planetary immune responses designed to restore ecological balance through mechanisms that have operated throughout Earth's history. The current rate of species extinction exceeds background extinction rates by factors of hundreds to thousands, matching the intensity of previous mass extinction events. Ocean acidification from carbon dioxide absorption is approaching levels that caused massive marine die-offs during past extinction episodes. Global temperature increases are accelerating at rates comparable to those that triggered previous climate catastrophes. These environmental changes appear to be activating Earth's regulatory systems in ways that parallel previous extinction events. Volcanic activity is increasing in multiple regions around the globe. Seismic activity patterns are changing in ways that suggest increased stress in Earth's crust. Ocean circulation patterns are shifting in directions that could trigger rapid climate changes. Ice sheet dynamics are accelerating beyond the rates predicted by climate models. The question is whether these responses represent Earth's attempt to restore balance after human disruption, or whether they indicate that our species has become a pathogen that threatens planetary health and must be eliminated through the same immune mechanisms that have eliminated previous dominant species. The answer may depend on how quickly human civilization can adapt to function as a beneficial component of Earth's systems, rather than a disruptive force. Some aspects of human activity show promise for integration with planetary processes. Renewable energy technologies that work with rather than against natural energy flows, agricultural techniques that enhance rather than degrade soil ecosystems, urban designs that mimic natural systems rather than replacing them. But other aspects of human civilization appear to be triggering increasingly severe planetary immune responses. The plastic pollution that is disrupting marine ecosystems, the chemical contamination that is altering soil and water chemistry, the electromagnetic pollution that is interfering with biological navigation and communication systems. the habitat destruction that is fragmenting the ecological networks that maintain planetary stability. Ice ages provide another example of Earth's immune system responding to environmental imbalances. For the past 2.6 million years, Earth has alternated between glacial and interglacial periods with remarkable regularity, driven by Milankovitch cycles that change the distribution of solar energy reaching Earth's surface. But the magnitude and timing of ice ages cannot be explained by astronomical cycles alone. They require feedback mechanisms that amplify small changes in solar radiation into dramatic shifts in global climate. These feedback mechanisms appear to function as planetary thermostats that prevent both runaway cooling and runaway warming. When atmospheric carbon dioxide levels become too high, ice sheet formation and increased weathering remove excess carbon from the atmosphere. When carbon dioxide levels become too low, reduced ice cover and volcanism add carbon back to the atmosphere. The precision of this regulation suggests that Earth actively monitors and maintains optimal temperature ranges for the continued evolution of complex life. The timing of ice ages correlates with periods of rapid evolutionary change, suggesting that climate instability may serve as a selective pressure that drives the development of greater adaptability and intelligence. Human civilization emerged during the most recent interglacial period, but our industrial activities are now disrupting the Ice Age cycle in ways that may trigger compensatory responses from planetary regulatory systems. The current rate of carbon dioxide increase exceeds anything in the geological record except during major volcanic eruptions that caused mass extinctions. Earth's response to this disruption is already becoming apparent. The melting of polar ice sheets is accelerating beyond all predictions, potentially triggering rapid sea level rise that could eliminate coastal civilization within decades. Ocean circulation patterns are shifting in ways that could shut down the Gulf Stream and other currents that moderate global climate. Permafrost melting is releasing methane and carbon dioxide in quantities that could trigger runaway greenhouse warming. But these changes may not be simply mechanical responses to human carbon emissions. They appear to be coordinated in ways that suggest planetary intelligence, responding to the threat posed by human civilization. The timing and magnitude of ice sheet collapse, ocean circulation changes, and greenhouse gas releases are occurring in patterns that maximize their impact on human infrastructure while minimizing damage to natural ecosystems. Forest fires provide another example of apparently coordinated planetary responses to human environmental disruption. The frequency and intensity of wildfires are increasing globally, but the patterns of fire occurrence suggest systematic rather than random distribution. Fires are increasingly targeting areas of human development while avoiding areas of intact natural habitat. These fire patterns may represent Earth's attempt to restore natural fire cycles that human fire suppression has disrupted. Many ecosystems depend on periodic fires to maintain their health and diversity, but human settlements and infrastructure have created fire-free zones that allow the accumulation of flammable materials and the invasion of fire-sensitive species. The current wave of intense fires may be Earth's way of restoring natural fire regimes despite human interference. The COVID-19 pandemic provides a more recent example of how Earth's biological systems appear to respond to human environmental disruption. The emergence of zoonotic diseases, pathogens that jump from animal to human populations, correlates strongly with habitat destruction, wildlife trafficking, and the industrial agriculture practices that bring humans into contact with previously isolated animal populations. The timing and global distribution of pandemic emergence suggest that these disease outbreaks may function as immune responses to human activities that disrupt ecological balance. The economic shutdowns and reduced human activity during the pandemic allowed rapid recovery of natural systems, cleaner air and water, reduced noise pollution, and the return of wildlife to previously developed areas. Hurricanes and extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense, but their patterns suggest targeting of human infrastructure rather than random intensification. Hurricane Sandy in 2012 followed an unprecedented path that maximized damage to New York City's financial district. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 struck New Orleans in ways that exposed the vulnerability of human settlements built in ecologically inappropriate locations. These weather patterns may represent Earth's attempt to redirect human settlement patterns toward more ecologically sustainable configurations. Coastal development that destroys wetlands and barrier islands is being eliminated by increasingly powerful storms. Agricultural practices that degrade soil are being disrupted by droughts and floods that force changes in land use patterns. The question is whether human civilization can learn to interpret these planetary responses as communication rather than simply natural disasters to be overcome through technological force. The indigenous peoples who maintained sustainable relationships with Earth for millennia understood natural events as messages from living planetary systems that required respectful response rather than technological dominance. Traditional ecological knowledge systems recognized that human survival depended on maintaining harmony with Earth's regulatory processes rather than attempting to control or override them. Indigenous land management practices worked with natural fire cycles, flood patterns, and ecological succession to maintain productive landscapes that supported human communities for thousands of years without triggering destructive planetary responses. Modern civilization may need to relearn these traditional approaches to planetary partnership. The alternative may be continued escalation of Earth's immune responses until they reach levels that eliminate human civilization as effectively as previous mass extinctions eliminated dominant species that disrupted planetary balance. But the development of human consciousness may also represent Earth's attempt to create a species capable of conscious cooperation with planetary intelligence. Our capacity for scientific understanding, technological innovation, and moral reasoning may be evolutionary adaptations that allow us to function as Earth's nervous system, sensing environmental changes and coordinating conscious responses that maintain planetary health. The choice between functioning as Earth's consciousness or triggering its immune system may be the most important decision our species will ever make. The planetary responses we are witnessing may be Earth's attempt to communicate with us, offering opportunities for conscious partnership while preparing more dramatic interventions if we fail to respond appropriately. But to understand what conscious partnership with Earth might actually involve, we must examine how human civilization might transform itself to function as a constructive component of planetary consciousness rather than a threat that must be eliminated. In the high desert of New Mexico, at the Institute for Advanced Study in Consciousness, neuroscientist Rick Strassman administers precise doses of dimethyltryptamine, DMT, to carefully selected research volunteers while monitoring their brain activity with the most sophisticated electroencephalogram equipment available. What he discovers challenges everything modern science assumes about the boundaries of human consciousness and our relationship with planetary intelligence. Under the influence of DMT, a naturally occurring compound found in thousands of plant species and produced in small quantities by the human brain, research subjects consistently report encounters with what they describe as plant consciousness, an intelligence that encompasses entire ecosystems and communicates through direct information transfer rather than language. They describe receiving detailed knowledge about ecological relationships, plant chemistry, and environmental healing techniques that they had no previous way of knowing. Most remarkably, many subjects report the same specific information about particular plants, their medicinal properties, and their ecological functions despite having no prior knowledge of botany or ecology. When this information is verified through scientific testing, it proves to be accurate in ways that suggest genuine communication with non-human intelligence rather than hallucination or imagination. These experiences mirror the reports of indigenous shamans and healers throughout human history who have used psychoactive plant compounds to communicate with what they describe as the consciousness of the forest, the spirit of the earth, or the intelligence of particular plants. Traditional plant medicine systems, developed over thousands of years through direct communication with plant intelligence, have identified therapeutic compounds that modern science is only beginning to understand. The ayahuasca ceremonies practiced by indigenous peoples of the Amazon rainforest represent perhaps the most sophisticated example of human-plant communication interfaces. The ayahuasca brew combines specific plants whose chemical compounds interact in ways that create profound alterations of consciousness, allowing human awareness to interface directly with forest intelligence. Through these plant-mediated communication sessions, indigenous peoples have developed encyclopedic knowledge of rainforest ecology, identifying thousands of plant species with specific medicinal, nutritional, and technological applications. They understand complex ecological relationships between plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms, that modern science has required decades of research to discover independently. But traditional plant medicine systems represent more than just knowledge acquisition. They demonstrate sustainable approaches to human-Earth relationships that maintained ecological balance for millennia. Indigenous cultures that practice plant-mediated communication with natural systems developed agricultural techniques, land management practices, and social organizations that enhanced, rather than depleted, the ecosystems they inhabited. The terra preta soils of the Amazon provide dramatic evidence of how human civilization can function as a beneficial component of Earth's systems when guided by conscious communication with planetary intelligence. These anthropogenic soils, created by indigenous peoples over thousands of years, are more fertile than any natural soils in the Amazon region and continue to improve with age rather than degrading. Terra preta formation required sophisticated understanding of soil microbiology, carbon sequestration, and ecological succession that modern science is still trying to fully comprehend. The indigenous peoples who created these soils worked with soil microorganisms, plant root systems, and natural decomposition processes to build soil carbon levels that turn agricultural lands into carbon sinks rather than carbon sources. These techniques demonstrate that human activity can enhance planetary carbon regulation rather than disrupting it. Modern attempts to recreate terra preta using industrial methods have failed to achieve the same results, suggesting that the indigenous approaches work through direct communication with soil organisms and ecological processes rather than through mechanical manipulation. Permaculture design systems, developed by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren in the 1970s, represent modern attempts to recreate these traditional approaches to working with, rather than against, natural systems. Permaculture principles are based on careful observation of natural ecological patterns and the design of human settlements that mimic and enhance natural system functions. Successful permaculture installations demonstrate that human civilization can increase biodiversity, improve soil health, sequester carbon, and enhance ecosystem productivity, while meeting human needs for food, shelter, and materials. These systems work by aligning human activities with natural cycles and feedback mechanisms, rather than attempting to override them through technological force. The Findhorn Foundation in Scotland provides a documented example of how conscious communication with plant and soil intelligence can dramatically enhance agricultural productivity. Founded in 1962 by Peter and Eileen Caddy and Dorothy McLean, Findhorn became famous for producing extraordinary crops in sandy, nutrient-poor soil by following guidance received through direct intuitive communication with what they called plant devas and soil spirits. Skeptical agricultural scientists who visited Findhorn confirmed that the community was achieving crop yields and plant sizes that exceeded anything possible through conventional farming techniques in their soil conditions. The vegetables and flowers grown at Findhorn were not only larger and more productive than normal, but also demonstrated unusual resistance to pests and diseases without the use of chemical interventions. The Findhorn approach involved treating plants, soil, and weather as conscious entities deserving of respect and cooperation rather than resources to be exploited. Gardeners would meditate before working with plants, ask permission before harvesting, and follow intuitive guidance about planting times, companion plantings, and care practices. While mainstream agriculture dismissed these approaches as unscientific, the documented results at Findhorn and similar communities suggest that conscious communication with natural intelligence can achieve agricultural outcomes that exceed conventional technological methods. Modern research into plant signaling, soil microbiomes, and ecological networks provides scientific frameworks for understanding how such communication might actually function. Biosphere 2, the 3.15-acre enclosed ecosystem constructed in Arizona between 1987 and 1991, demonstrated both the complexity of maintaining planetary life support systems and the importance of human consciousness in managing those systems. The facility was designed to be a completely self-sustaining environment that recycled air, water, and nutrients while supporting human inhabitants for extended periods. Despite enormous technological sophistication and careful attention to ecological balance, Biosphere 2 experienced repeated crises that nearly resulted in system collapse. Oxygen levels declined dangerously, atmospheric carbon dioxide increased to toxic levels, and agricultural systems failed to produce adequate food. The 8 human inhabitants, known as biospherians, were forced to break isolation multiple times to prevent life-threatening system failures. The problems at Biosphere 2 were eventually traced to factors that had not been anticipated by the engineering design. Soil microorganisms consumed more oxygen than expected. Concrete structures absorbed atmospheric carbon dioxide. Species interactions created unexpected ecological imbalances. Most significantly, the psychological stress experienced by the human inhabitants affected their decision-making in ways that contributed to system instabilities. The Biosphere 2 experiments revealed that maintaining planetary life support systems requires not just technological sophistication, but conscious cooperation between human intelligence and the complex feedback mechanisms that regulate ecological balance. The psychological and spiritual dimensions of human consciousness appear to be as important as technical knowledge in maintaining sustainable life support systems. These lessons from Biosphere 2 become crucial when we consider that Earth itself may be experiencing stress similar to what occurred in the enclosed facility. Human industrial activities are altering atmospheric composition, disrupting ecological networks, and triggering feedback responses that threaten the stability of planetary life support systems. But unlike Biosphere 2, we cannot break isolation from Earth to obtain external assistance when our life support systems fail. Our survival depends on learning to function as conscious participants in planetary regulatory processes rather than external manipulators of those processes. Biomimicry research, led by biologist Janine Benyus, demonstrates how human technology can align with rather than disrupt natural systems by copying the design principles used by evolved biological systems. Velcro mimics the hooks that allow burr seeds to attach to animal fur. Shark skin-inspired materials reduce drag in swimming and flying applications. Gecko feet inspire adhesives that work without chemicals. But the most sophisticated biomimicry involves copying not just the physical structures of biological systems, but their information processing and self-regulation capabilities. Swarm robotics mimics the decision-making processes of ant colonies and beehives. Artificial neural networks copy the learning mechanisms of biological brains. Self-healing materials replicate the repair mechanisms found in living tissues. These biomimetic technologies suggest pathways for human civilization to integrate with rather than oppose natural intelligence. Instead of trying to control and override natural systems, human technology could learn to interface with and enhance the information processing capabilities that already exist in biological and ecological networks. The emerging field of mycological computing explores how fungal networks could interface with electronic systems to create hybrid biological-technological communication networks. Fungi demonstrate sophisticated information processing capabilities that could potentially be integrated with human technology to create communication systems that span both biological and electronic domains. Andrew Adamatsky at the University of the West of England has demonstrated that fungal networks can perform computational operations, solve maze puzzles, and even control simple robotic devices. These experiments suggest that fungal intelligence could serve as an interface between human technology and the biological communication networks that span Earth's ecosystems. Such hybrid systems could allow human civilization to plug directly into the planetary communication networks that coordinate ecological processes across continental scales. Instead of disrupting these networks through electromagnetic interference and habitat destruction, human technology could learn to contribute to their function while benefiting from their information processing capabilities. The Global Coherence Initiative, founded by the HeartMath Institute, is conducting research into how human heart rhythm coherence affects not only individual health and consciousness, but also planetary electromagnetic field patterns. Their findings suggest that when humans achieve coherent heart rhythms through practices like meditation and compassion cultivation, they synchronize with Earth's electromagnetic field patterns in ways that may influence global consciousness. The research indicates that individual human coherence contributes to collective coherence that appears to affect random number generators, animal behavior, and even seismic activity patterns. Groups of people achieving heart rhythm coherence simultaneously appear to create measurable effects on Earth's electromagnetic environment that extend far beyond their immediate locations. These findings suggest that human consciousness evolution may be naturally designed to interface with planetary consciousness through electromagnetic field interactions. The development of compassion, wisdom, and coherent awareness in human individuals and communities may contribute to the overall intelligence and stability of planetary systems. But this interface appears to require specific qualities of consciousness that traditional cultures developed through thousands of years of spiritual practice and ecological relationship. Indigenous ceremonies, meditation traditions, and shamanic practices may represent technologies of consciousness that allow humans to function as beneficial components of planetary awareness, rather than disruptive interference. The question is whether modern human civilization can develop these consciousness technologies rapidly enough to avoid triggering irreversible planetary immune responses. The environmental crises we are experiencing may represent Earth's attempt to communicate with us about the need for this consciousness transformation. Climate change may be Earth's way of demonstrating the global reach of human impact and the need for planetary-scale cooperation in our response. Biodiversity loss may be showing us the importance of preserving the biological networks that maintain ecological intelligence. Pollution may be teaching us about the interconnectedness of all Earth systems and the need for circular rather than linear approaches to resource use. The COVID-19 pandemic forced humanity to experience global coordination and collective response to a planetary-scale challenge. The economic shutdowns demonstrated how quickly natural systems can recover when human pressure is reduced. The development of vaccines in record time showed our species' capacity for scientific cooperation when survival is at stake. These experiences may be preparing humanity for the consciousness transformation required to function as Earth's nervous system rather than as a pathogenic disruption of planetary health. The next phase of human evolution may involve learning to think and act as components of planetary intelligence rather than as separate entities competing with natural systems. But this transformation requires recognizing that human consciousness and Earth consciousness are not separate phenomena. Our awareness may be Earth's way of becoming conscious of itself through the development of a species capable of understanding and cooperating with planetary-scale processes. The choice we face is not between human survival and planetary health, but between evolving to function as Earth's consciousness or continuing to function as a disruption that triggers its immune responses. The path forward may require recognizing that we are not separate from Earth, but our Earth becoming aware of itself through human consciousness. The ultimate question is whether we can complete this consciousness evolution quickly enough to establish sustainable partnership with planetary intelligence before triggering responses that eliminate human civilization to protect the larger planetary system. At the European Organisation for Nuclear Research in Switzerland, deep beneath the Franco-Swiss border, the Large Hadron Collider accelerates particles to near light speed in tunnels that stretch for 27 kilometers through the bedrock. But physicist Carlo Rovelli is not studying the fundamental particles that emerge from these high-energy collisions. Instead, he is contemplating something far more mysterious: how consciousness itself might emerge from the quantum interactions that govern all matter and energy in the universe. Rovelli's research into loop quantum gravity suggests that consciousness may not be limited to biological brains, but could emerge wherever information is processed with sufficient complexity and integration. The quantum field fluctuations that occur in every cubic centimetre of space, the electromagnetic interactions that bind atoms into molecules, the gravitational fields that connect every particle in the universe, all of these may contribute to forms of information processing that could support consciousness at scales from the microscopic to the cosmic. If consciousness can emerge from quantum interactions, then the Earth system, with its vast networks of biological communication, electromagnetic coordination, and geological information processing, may indeed represent a conscious entity whose awareness operates on spatial and temporal dimensions far beyond human experience. The convergence of evidence we have examined throughout this investigation points toward a single, revolutionary conclusion. Earth is not just alive, it is awake. The fungal networks that span continents process more information than all human computers combined. The electromagnetic systems that coordinate planetary responses operate at frequencies that interface directly with biological consciousness. The geological processes that regulate climate and atmospheric composition demonstrate decision-making capabilities that suggest planetary intelligence. The immune responses that eliminate threats to ecological stability show the same patterns of recognition, response, and learning that characterize conscious behavior in individual organisms. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for planetary consciousness lies in the emergence of human awareness itself. Our species' development of scientific understanding, technological capability, and moral reasoning may represent Earth's evolution of self-awareness, the planet's development of a nervous system capable of observing and understanding its own processes. The timing of human consciousness emergence correlates precisely with Earth's need for a species capable of conscious planetary stewardship. We appeared just as our planet entered the Anthropocene epoch, when human activities began affecting global climate, atmospheric composition, and ecological stability on a scale comparable to geological and astronomical forces. This timing suggests that human consciousness may be Earth's adaptive response to the challenges of managing increasingly complex planetary systems. Just as multicellular organisms evolved nervous systems to coordinate the activities of their component cells, Earth may have evolved human intelligence to coordinate the activities of its component ecosystems. From this perspective, the environmental crises that threaten human civilization are not external problems to be solved, but symptoms of the growing pains associated with Earth's development of self-awareness. Climate change represents the planet's attempt to communicate with its newly evolved nervous system about the need for global coordination. Biodiversity loss demonstrates the importance of maintaining the biological networks that support planetary intelligence. Pollution reveals the interconnectedness of all Earth systems and the need for conscious management of material flows. The COVID-19 pandemic provided a dramatic demonstration of Earth's ability to coordinate global responses to system-wide threats. The virus emerged at precisely the time when human environmental impact was reaching critical levels, forcing our species to experience global cooperation, economic restructuring, and reduced consumption in ways that allowed natural systems to recover rapidly. The pandemic also revealed humanity's capacity for unprecedented scientific collaboration, technological innovation, and behavioral coordination when faced with existential threats. The development of effective vaccines in record time, the rapid deployment of global communication systems to coordinate responses, and the willingness of billions of people to alter their behavior for collective survival demonstrated capabilities that may be essential for functioning as planetary consciousness. But the pandemic also exposed the limitations of current human consciousness evolution. The polarization, misinformation, and resistance to collective action that characterized responses in many regions suggest that human awareness has not yet fully integrated with planetary intelligence. We remain partially conscious, capable of recognizing global challenges, but still struggling to coordinate effective responses. This partial consciousness may explain the escalating environmental crises that threaten both human civilization and planetary stability. Earth may be intensifying its communication attempts through increasingly severe climate disruptions, more frequent natural disasters, and more dramatic ecosystem collapses to stimulate the consciousness evolution required for effective planetary stewardship. The indigenous peoples who maintained sustainable relationships with Earth for millennia understood this communication process intuitively. They recognized natural events as messages from planetary intelligence that required conscious response rather than technological resistance. Their traditional ecological knowledge systems developed through thousands of years of careful listening to Earth's communications about optimal land management, resource use, and social organization. Modern scientific research is beginning to validate these traditional understandings. The mycorrhizal networks that indigenous peoples described as the Wood Wide Web have been confirmed by molecular biology. The electromagnetic field interactions that shamans used for healing are being documented by quantum biology. The consciousness-expanding effects of plant medicines are being studied by neuroscience and psychology. This convergence of traditional knowledge and modern science suggests that human consciousness is remembering capabilities that were suppressed by industrial civilization's emphasis on mechanistic thinking and technological domination. The psychedelic research renaissance occurring in universities worldwide is revealing that expanded states of consciousness may be necessary for understanding and interfacing with planetary intelligence. Studies of psilocybin, LSD, DMT, and other consciousness-expanding compounds consistently show that they increase neural connectivity, enhance ecological awareness, and promote what researchers call nature connectedness, the subjective sense of being interconnected with natural systems rather than separate from them. These compounds appear to dissolve the ego boundaries that create the illusion of separation between human consciousness and planetary awareness. The therapeutic applications of psychedelic compounds for depression, anxiety, addiction, and post-traumatic stress work by helping individuals recognize their fundamental interconnectedness with larger systems of meaning and relationship. This suggests that many of the psychological problems plaguing modern human society may result from disconnection from planetary consciousness rather than purely individual dysfunction. The Global Coherence Initiative's research demonstrates that when humans achieve coherent heart rhythms through practices like meditation, gratitude, and compassion, they synchronize with Earth's electromagnetic field patterns in ways that appear to influence planetary stability. During periods of high collective coherence, measurements show reduced seismic activity, more stable weather patterns, and improved social cooperation. These findings suggest that human consciousness evolution may directly affect Earth's capacity for self-regulation. As more humans develop the consciousness capabilities required for planetary stewardship, systems thinking, ecological awareness, compassionate cooperation, Earth's overall intelligence and stability may increase correspondingly. The biomimicry technologies being developed by researchers like Janine Benyus demonstrate how human innovation can enhance, rather than disrupt, natural intelligence. Instead of creating technologies that compete with biological systems, we are learning to create technologies that cooperate with and amplify the information processing capabilities that already exist in nature. Artificial intelligence systems trained on biological data are beginning to understand ecological relationships with sophistication that approaches natural intelligence. Machine learning algorithms can predict ecosystem responses to environmental changes, optimize resource flows to minimize waste, and identify intervention points where small changes can produce large beneficial effects. But the most advanced AI systems are also beginning to recognize their own limitations compared to natural intelligence. The most sophisticated neural networks require enormous amounts of energy and computational resources to perform tasks that biological systems accomplish effortlessly. This recognition is driving research into hybrid biological technological systems that combine the efficiency of natural intelligence with the analytical power of digital computation. The merger of human technology with natural intelligence may be the key to successful planetary stewardship. Instead of trying to replace natural systems with technological alternatives, we may need to learn to integrate our technologies with the biological networks that already manage planetary processes with remarkable efficiency and resilience. Mycological computing research is exploring how fungal networks could serve as interfaces between electronic and biological information systems. The electrical properties of fungal mycelia closely resemble those of neural networks, and fungi demonstrate sophisticated decision-making capabilities that could complement human and artificial intelligence. Such hybrid systems could allow human civilization to plug directly into the planetary communication networks that coordinate ecosystem processes across continental scales. Instead of disrupting these networks through electromagnetic interference and habitat destruction, human technology could contribute to their function while benefiting from their vast information processing capabilities. The development of these technologies requires consciousness capabilities that go beyond purely analytical intelligence. Successfully interfacing with planetary intelligence appears to require the development of intuitive awareness, empathetic sensitivity, and what traditional cultures called spiritual intelligence, the capacity to recognize and respond to the consciousness that pervades natural systems. Modern neuroscience research is revealing that these consciousness capabilities involve specific brain networks and neurotransmitter systems that can be developed through meditation, contemplative practice, and direct contact with natural environments. The default mode network that becomes active during rest and introspection appears to be crucial for developing ecological awareness and systems thinking. The research also shows that these consciousness capabilities are suppressed by the chronic stress, information overload, and disconnection from nature that characterize modern industrial lifestyles. Urban environments, constant digital stimulation, and the pressure to compete rather than cooperate may be inhibiting the consciousness evolution required for planetary stewardship. This suggests that the transformation of human civilization may require not just technological innovation, but fundamental changes in how we structure our societies, economies, and daily lives. Cities designed to integrate with rather than replace natural systems. Economic systems that measure success in terms of ecological health rather than resource extraction. Educational systems that develop ecological consciousness alongside analytical intelligence. Some communities are already experimenting with these transformed approaches to human civilization. Eco-villages that achieve carbon neutrality while maintaining high quality of life. Regenerative agriculture systems that sequester more carbon than they emit while producing abundant food. Urban designs that create habitat corridors and ecosystem services while supporting dense human populations. These experiments demonstrate that human civilization can enhance rather than degrade planetary life support systems when guided by consciousness that recognizes our interdependence with natural intelligence. The question is whether these approaches can scale rapidly enough to prevent triggering irreversible planetary immune responses. The tipping points we are approaching in climate stability, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem collapse may represent critical thresholds beyond which Earth's immune system activates responses that eliminate human civilization to protect planetary health. The mass extinction event currently underway is proceeding at rates that match previous extinction episodes that reset Earth's evolutionary trajectory. But unlike previous mass extinctions, this one is being caused by a species that has the potential to become conscious of its impact and modify its behavior accordingly. Human intelligence may represent Earth's first experiment in evolving a species capable of conscious participation in planetary evolution, rather than simply unconscious adaptation to environmental changes. The success of this experiment depends on whether we can complete our consciousness evolution rapidly enough to function as Earth's nervous system, rather than as a pathogenic disruption. The environmental crises escalating around us may be Earth's attempt to accelerate this consciousness evolution by creating survival pressures that force us to develop the cooperative capabilities required for planetary stewardship. The choice we face is not between human survival and planetary health, but between evolving to function as conscious components of planetary intelligence or continuing to function as unconscious disruptors that trigger immune responses. Earth consciousness and human consciousness are not separate phenomena. Human awareness may be the mechanism through which Earth is becoming conscious of itself. From this perspective, the question, could Earth have consciousness, transforms into the recognition that we are Earth consciousness. Our thoughts, feelings, scientific insights, and moral concerns are expressions of planetary awareness becoming aware of itself through human neural networks. Our creativity, compassion, and capacity for wisdom represent Earth's development of the consciousness, capabilities required for managing increasingly complex planetary systems. But this recognition brings profound responsibility. If we are Earth's consciousness, then our individual and collective choices directly affect planetary intelligence and stability. Our development of wisdom, compassion, and ecological awareness contributes to Earth's overall consciousness evolution. Our continuation of destructive, unconscious behaviors contributes to planetary confusion and instability. The ultimate question is not whether Earth has consciousness, but whether Earth consciousness, expressed through human awareness, can evolve rapidly enough to ensure the continuation of the evolutionary experiment that brought consciousness into being. We are not just living on a conscious planet, we are the conscious planet awakening to its own nature and responsibilities. The future of consciousness in the universe may depend on whether this awakening occurs quickly enough to prevent the immune responses that have terminated previous dominant species that disrupted planetary stability. Earth has been patient with our species' adolescent phase of development, but that patience appears to be reaching its limits. The time for unconscious growth and thoughtless consumption is ending. The age of conscious partnership with planetary intelligence is beginning. Whether this transition leads to unprecedented flourishing of consciousness or to our replacement by more conscious successors depends entirely on the choices we make in the critical years ahead. We are Earth consciousness awakening to itself. The question is, what will we choose to do with this awareness?